me. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Jesse Berger. Just very quickly about me, I worked in retail banking and wealth management and management consulting for a decade prior to getting into Bitcoin. I wrote a book about Bitcoin in 2020, and currently I consult at a company called Bitcoin Mentor, where I help people learn to truly own Bitcoin and understand the value proposition involved in doing so. Today I'm going to talk to you about why Bitcoin is the North Star of cyberspace. Now, why did I choose the North Star? Well, obviously it's the brightest star in the sky, it's in a fixed position, and it has enduring utility. And what I mean by that is Bitcoin is timeless, it is unchanging, uncompromising, and undeniable. Sort of like a lighthouse on a foggy night. It not only serves as a guide, but it also illuminates that which was previously imperceptible. And its insistent presence serves as a constant reminder. But of what exactly? Many people see Bitcoin as merely a digital currency, as an alternative money, but I would put it to you that it's much more than that. Its success is rooted in a set of inviolable principles or ideals that I've broken down into three categories. We have the social, technology, and monetary. The Age of Enlightenment could be thought of as bringing us ideas rooted in humility. We as humanity acknowledge that we should not have power to subjugate one another and that each of us has something to learn from one another. It basically highlighted the value of mutual respect, and it influences what we now know as democratic values, as civil society. So some of these ideals include reason and the scientific method. Bitcoin exemplifies this because the Bitcoin blockchain is an objective source of truth. You cannot cheat it, it cannot lie. It exhibits freedom and individual rights. Anyone who owns the key to their private coins can send it to whomever they want, whenever they want. There is no way to stop it, to censor it. The governance of Bitcoin is something you opt into. It is not something that is foisted upon you. And it separates powers of state and encourages skepticism. There's a phrase in Bitcoin that says, "Don't trust, verify." And so effectively, you could think of it as rules without rulers. In a centralized system like you see on the left there, you have a top-down entity, whether that's, and it could be applied in money, banking, education, healthcare, and basically any field that requires governance, saying this is the way the rules are going to be and everyone has to abide by that. If the central bank changes the interest rate, everyone has to abide by that. The problem with a centralized model is that if the central power makes a mistake, it is difficult to give it is very difficult to provide a feedback to them and for them to change course. Whereas in a decentralized system, if someone makes a mistake, the other parties interacting with them can simply stop interacting with them. If they try to cheat, you can simply stop interacting with them. And so there's an incentive for everyone to get on the same page. This is the entire premise of decentralization as a theme. And Bitcoin obviously very much exhibits this. On the technology side, some of you may have heard of cypherpunks. It's a group of cryptographers that focus on privacy-enhancing technology. They have been working on technologies that played into Bitcoin for decades before Bitcoin came into existence. One of their key ethos, the Cypherpunks Manifesto, written by Eric Hughes, highlighted that the technologies that they were coming up with and creating are defensive in nature. A lot of people see something like a Cypherpunks Manifesto and think, wow, that's a very aggressive title. But it's a very defensive mindset. They just want to protect what is theirs, their privacy, their rights. And they realize that large corporations or governments, unfortunately, don't really do that for them. They might say they try to, but in practice, it often doesn't happen. And so in order to protect your rights, you have to come up with ways to do that yourself. And so they've taken to building that themselves. Bitcoin exemplifies a number of these ideals, freedom of speech, for instance, because anyone can broadcast to the Bitcoin blockchain. There's nothing stopping anyone from broadcasting a message on the Bitcoin blockchain. And we should understand in civil society that if you restrict ideas and restrict speech, you're effectively restricting ideas and you're restricting progress. Privacy is not secrecy. If I were to say to you, have you heard of the phrase, nothing to hide, nothing to hear, I think everyone in the room would raise their hand. If I said, who believes in that, I hope most hands would go down, but maybe a couple would keep their hand up that they agree, yeah, nothing to hide, nothing to fear. For those that kept their hand up, I would ask, give me your phone and let me read out all your DMs and private messages to the public. At that point, then your hand would go down. Everyone values privacy. Not everyone really thinks about how that applies to them in the real world. Bitcoin is protects that. It recognizes that anonymity is empowerment. You can choose to reveal what you want when you want. And additionally, it requires that code be open source and censorship resistant because a widely dispersed system cannot be shut down. That might look something like this. For those familiar with Metcalfe's law, you may have seen a similar chart with a fax machine. If you have a single fax machine, it has no value whatsoever. As soon as you add a second one, you have value of being able to share information between one another. Once you add multiple machines in, all cooperating together, now you have a network, and that's where the value comes from. And again, these are all open source. Anyone can join. It's voluntary. So let's quickly talk about monetary ideals. Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, said that the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's involved. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. I think more and more we're seeing that today. People are starting to really recognize and understand how and why that's the case. And so Satoshi created what we could call the Monetary Declaration of Independence, otherwise known as the Bitcoin White Paper. In it, he outlines peer-to-peer electronic cash, using digital signatures, again, cypherpunk technologies, eliminating the double spend problem. That's what Satoshi was talking about when he said not debasing the currency. A record that cannot be changed without doing proof of work. So we're talking about permanent records where there's no single party that has access to edit or manipulate or cheat the data. What is done is final. And then the network itself, this is what I think makes Bitcoin very special. It requires limited infrastructure. It's very simple and profound, and that makes it more secure, whereas when you introduce a lot of complexity, things tend to break down. And of course, it's voluntary. Nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will. So what are some of the monetary ideals of Bitcoin? Well, fixed supply. Why fixed supply? Because as soon as you inflate, you are stealing from those who previously had. You want to minimize trust. Nick Szabo, a famed cryptographer, said that trusted third parties are security holes. If you have money at certain financial institutions, you are subject to their terms and conditions. You have to trust that they will let you access your funds, your resources when you want. The entire point of decentralization and Bitcoin in general is to minimize trust. It must be permissionless. I don't need ID to carry cash and use cash and spend cash. Same thing with Bitcoin. You don't need to have an ID. There's no one who is qualified to vet someone else to maintain property rights, to own something. And of course, the issuance of money should be costly and competitive. In other words, there should be no free money. Someone should not be able to just print money willy-nilly, as we see with central banks. But anyone should be able to participate in the process of minting money. It just should not be free. It should be a level playing field. So these are some of the ideals that Bitcoin exemplifies. As you can see, this is the monetary base of the United States, so the amount of dollars in circulation. From 1960 to, let's call it the year 2000, there was a relatively predictable but gradually rising increase in the money supply. It was maybe somewhat trustworthy and predictable. And then long-term capital management, LTCM, which was a big deal in like 1999, it's now just a blip on the radar. The global financial crisis, we start printing money like crazy. COVID, we printed a whole bunch more money. This chart, I have no certainty or no faith in this chart. I have no idea what's going to happen next. And that is a problem for me. I very much prefer a chart like this, where I know exactly where we are, and I can predict very specifically into the future where we are going. I know that there's about 94% of all Bitcoin have already been issued, and I know exactly when the remaining 6% are going to come out. I have a very high degree of certainty, and as a result, because this chart is basically the inversion of the previous chart where we started gradual and went parabolic, Bitcoin went parabolic, and now it's becoming gradual in its supply. Dollars are becoming untrustworthy, while Bitcoin is becoming more trustworthy the more time goes on. So let me talk about some emergent applications. I just went through a lot of information about different ideals in different fields and how they apply to Bitcoin. I want to take you through a few things that are working to increase decentralization as a theme, but it's not Web3 and blockchain and tokenomics. These, to me, unfortunately, are mostly buzzwords. I don't see them in practice. But if you want to see real decentralization or attempts at it in practice, let's talk about Nostr. Nostr stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relay. It is an open source protocol for what we could call socializing. It was initially developed as social media, censorship-resistant social media, but I'll tell you it's a lot more than that. It flips the old architecture of dumb client, smart server on its head. Smart client, dumb server is the way it works now. And in order to use it, it's like Bitcoin. You have a private key to your profile. So what that looks like is you would actually own your identity and your content. Right now, if you have a YouTube channel, YouTube owns your content. YouTube owns your followers. With Nostr, I have my own private key. My followers follow me via Nostr, and they can use Primal is an app, let's call it, or a window or a client for Nostr, but you could also use Amethyst or you could use Damus. And effectively, think about it like this. I can log into, I could go to my favorite website, Bitcoin.com. I can use Firefox, I can use Safari, I can use Chrome. They all take me to the same place. Same principle with Nostr, same principle with Bitcoin. It doesn't matter which wallet I use. If I have my private key, my coins are mine. With Nostr, my social graph is mine. So I can take it with me wherever I go. As a result of it being open source, I can basically choose my own algorithm. I'm not subject to the whims of YouTube. I'm not subject to the whims of Facebook. Moreover, value for value is enabled. And what I mean by that is, if you're getting paid by YouTube because you have a YouTube channel, they are taking a percentage of your payment. With something like Nostr, you get paid directly by your followers with no one in between. And the way we do that, you see the lightning bolt there, is by using the Lightning Network of Bitcoin. So if I post something and people find it valuable, they can tip me in sats, in Satoshis, which is the smallest denomination of Bitcoin. Immediately, it goes to a wallet that I control. No one's in the way, it's mine. Moreover, with something like Nostr, it is functionally decentralized because it's just voluntary people using relays, which are just like servers. They're just home servers, to pass along the various information being broadcast to the network. But there's no blockchain, there's no token, and yet it is decentralized and it works. So a lot of these things, again, I mentioned I see them as gimmicks. You don't need them to functionally decentralize things. So that's sort of my social example. If you want to look at a more technical or technology-focused example, let me talk about Start9 Labs. They are designing sovereign computing private servers. The idea, and it was also founded by a group of Bitcoiners, by the way. The idea being that they've created an open source operating system, and there's open source applications. So if you want to be your own cloud, if you don't want Amazon holding all your data or Apple holding all your data, you can host all that yourself. In fact, you probably should host all that yourself. You can self-host your own AI, your own password manager, messenger, file storage. The devices that Start9 sells, you can buy from them, but you don't have to buy from them. Their specs are all open source. You can build your own server, so you don't have to buy the products they sell. They have just opened the entire thing up. And as a result, you're reducing attack vectors, you're improving the economics, because now I don't have to pay fee for service to Amazon or Apple to back up my data storage every month. I just do it myself. The vision for this company and the application and the software that they're building is to decentralize the infrastructure of the internet. They want to create an opportunity for different devices, Start9 running devices, to talk to each other so that they can connect with each other, and you don't have to use a centralized internet. Everyone, the internet is just a bunch of servers at the end of the day. So if everyone has their own server, now we don't need to rely on centralized servers as much. And the way that they're doing it is they're trying to make it they're trying to lower the barriers to entry. They're trying to make it so that anyone can participate. I am not a particularly technical person, but I can use one of these products very easily. As a monetary ideal, eCash is a protocol for anonymous transfers of electronic cash. I talked about anonymity earlier. It was created by David Chom in the early 1980s. And so, yes, it wasn't influenced by Bitcoin. It was created long before Bitcoin. However, it didn't find a use case until Bitcoin. They tried to transfer dollars using eCash in, I forget if it was the 90s or early 2000s, and it basically didn't work because if you try to transfer anonymously US dollars online, eventually you need an off-ramp, and that's going to be a bank. And so you're going to have to provide information. You're going to have to provide your ID. So it doesn't really work. But with Bitcoin, you know, people tend to complain about, oh, it doesn't scale, it's not anonymous. This is actually a really great fit for Bitcoin in terms of scaling and improving the adoption of Bitcoin. It gives you very strong privacy, and moreover, the way that the mints work, which is sort of how transactions can be anonymized, we can actually build real decentralized financial tools, not the decentralized and name-only tools that we often hear about, where we can issue loans or grants to communities to actually help them fund projects that are going to help their communities without an intermediary involved. And so there you have it. You have a North Star to shoot for now. You have a bit of an overview of the values and the ideals that Bitcoin stands for and where we're seeing them applied in the real world. Bitcoin exemplifies the ideals across many fields. It is resilient, its permanence provides direction for those looking to build towards a more prosperous and free future. And so with Bitcoin leading the way, I think the future is very bright. Thank you very much.